Hello guys. How are you? I hope you are doing fine. Let's continue our discussion of some review questions for licensure examination for fisheries professionals. In this episode, our questions will be from Aquatic Ecology and Resources. But before we proceed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like this video, or other similar content. Please hit also the notification bell, so that you will be regularly updated. So, let's begin. Question number 101. Coral reefs serve as blank. A. Habitat for marine organisms. B. Wave breaker and protector of the shoreline from waves. C. Important fishing ground. And D. All of these. The correct answer is D. All of these. Coral reefs serve as habitat for marine organisms, especially the commercially important species. They also serve as wave breaker and protector of the shoreline from waves, wherein coastal communities are protected from storm surges. Coral reefs are also important fishing ground, particularly to the marginal fishermen. Question number 102. What do you call the upper column of ocean surface and the lighted zone? A. Euphotic zone. B. Benthic zone. C. Profundal zone. And D. Aphotic zone. The correct answer is A. Euphotic zone. The ocean is divided into 3 zones, based on depth and light level. The upper 200 meters of the ocean is called the euphotic, or sunlight zone. This zone receives enough light for photosynthesis, and contains the vast majority of commercial fisheries, and is home to many protected marine mammals and sea turtles. Only a small amount of light penetrates beyond this depth. The zone between 200 meters and 1000 meters is usually referred to as the twilight zone, but is officially called the dysphotic zone. In this zone, the intensity of light rapidly dissipates as depth increases. There is a presence of small amount of light, but photosynthesis is no longer possible. In the aphotic, or midnight zone, which exists in depths below 1000 meters, the sunlight does not penetrate to these depths, and the zone is bathed in darkness. Photic is a derivative of photon, the word for a particle of light. Question number 103. Which of the following is the most dominant in a brackish water environment? A. Seagrass beds. B. Coral reefs. C. Mangrove swamps. D. Seaweeds. The correct answer is C. Mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps are coastal wetlands found in tropical and subtropical regions. They are characterized by salt-loving trees, shrubs, and other plants growing in brackish to saline tidal waters. These wetlands are often found in estuaries, where fresh water meets salt water, and are infamous for their impenetrable maze of woody vegetation. Seagrasses are strictly marine, and the only true vasculent plants living in the marine environment. Coral reefs are also strictly marine, and very few can survive in brackish water environment. In terms of seaweeds, some species can thrive to freshwater and brackish water environment. Question number 104. What do you call the term used for a certain species, which is confined to, or occurring in one place only? A. Introduced. B. Native. C. Endemic. And D. Exotic. The correct answer is C. Endemic. When we say introduced or exotic species, it is a species introduced by humans, either deliberately or accidentally, outside of its native distributional range. Introduced species have often been implicated in the extinction of native species. Their introduction in another area may also bring disease. Oftentimes, introduced species serve as competitors and predators of many native species. Native species are those that has been observed naturally occurring in self-sustaining population in a particular locality. Question number 105. In what temperature will you observe the maximum density of fresh water? The choices are A. -1 degree Celsius, B. 0 degrees Celsius, C. 4 degrees Celsius, and D. 100 degrees Celsius. The correct answer is C. About 4 degrees Celsius, specifically 3.98 degrees Celsius. Usually when a liquid is heated, the molecules acquire more energy and become more widely spaced, so in the same volume, the density decreases. In fresh water the opposite may happen, depending on the temperature. When fresh water at 3.97 degrees Celsius is cooled, the density will decrease. Cooling a liquid usually packs the molecules more closely, which increases the density. This means that below 3.98 degrees Celsius, cooling results in the water molecules spacing out, and both the liquid and the solid water below this temperature expand. 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of fresh water, while 100 degrees Celsius is the boiling point of fresh water. Question number 106. What do you call the position of the organism in the food chain? The options are A. Herbivore, B. Trophic level, C. Food web, and D. Ultimate consumer. The correct answer is B. Trophic level. The trophic level of an organism is the number of steps it is from the start of the chain. Under this, organisms are classified as producer, consumer, and decomposer. Question number 107. How many % of energy is lost in every trophic level? A. 10%, B. 30%, C. 70%, D. 90%. The correct answer is D. 90%. The amount of energy at each trophic level decreases as it moves through an ecosystem. As little as 10% of the energy at any trophic level is transferred to the next level. The rest, or 90%, is lost largely through metabolic processes as heat.
Question number 108. This refers not only in the place where organisms live, but also their role in the ecosystem. What is this? A. Niche, B. Habitat, C. Seer, D. Succession. The correct answer is A. Niche. In ecology, the term niche describes the role an organism plays in a community. A species' niche encompasses both the physical and environmental conditions it requires, like temperature or terrain, and the interactions it has with other species, like predation or competition. A habitat is a place where an organism makes its home. A habitat meets all the environmental conditions an organism needs to survive. For an NBSP animal, that means everything it needs to find and gather food, select a mate, and successfully NBSP, reproduce. Seer, also known as seral community, is defined as the sequence of development stages of an ecological community, that starts from the pioneers to the climax stage. Succession, or ecological succession, is the process by which the structure of a biological community evolves over time. Two are different types of succession: the primary and the secondary succession. Primary succession occurs in essentially lifeless areas or regions, in which the area is incapable of sustaining life as a result of such factors as lava flows, newly formed sand dunes, or rocks left from a retreating glacier. Secondary succession occurs in areas where a community that previously existed has been removed.
Question number 109. Which of the following is a primary producer? The options are A. Shanos, B. Tetraselmes tetrahele, C. Brachiones plicatalize, and D. Artemia salina. The correct answer is B. Tetraselmes tetrahele. Tetraselmes tetrathel is a green algae, an important live feed organism for shrimp hatchery operations, because of its high nutritional value and ease of culture. It can replace Brachionis plicatalis and Artemia nauplii as live diet during the protozoal and mysis feeding stage. Shanos or milkfish, Brachionis plicatalis or rotifer, and Artemia saline or brine shrimp. Milkfish, rotifer and brine shrimp are primary consumer. Question number 110. A zone in which density increases with increasing depth. This zone isolates surface water from the denser layer below. What is this? A. Phenocline. B. Halocline. C. Thermocline. D. None of these. The correct answer is A. Phenocline. The halocline is a vertical zone in the oceanic water column, in which salinity changes rapidly with depth. It is located below the well-mixed, uniformly saline surface water layer. A thermocline is the transition layer between the warmer mixed water at the surface and the cooler deep water below. Thermocline varies from season to season and year to year. Question number 111. Which of the following organisms are considered planktonic? A. Grouper. B. Giant clam. C. Jellyfish. D. Sea turtle. The correct answer is C. Jellyfish. Plankton are organisms carried along by tides and currents. The word plankton comes from the Greek for drifter or wanderer. An organism is considered plankton if it is carried by tides and currents and cannot swim well enough to move against these forces. Plankton are usually microscopic, often less than 1 inch in length, but they also include larger species like some crustaceans and jellyfish. Groupers and sea turtles are considered as nekton. Nektons have the capability to swim from one place to another on their own will, regardless of tides and currents. Giant clams are sessile organisms. They are anchored to a substrate and cannot move about freely. Question number 112. Which of the following zonation of benthic environment is found at the deepest? A. Intertidal. B. Sublittoral zone. C. Abyssal zone. D. Hadal zone. The correct answer is D. Hadal zone. The deepest region of the oceans, with depth greater than 6,000 meters, is the hadal zone of the deep sea trenches. Sediments of the deep sea primarily originate from a rain of dead marine organisms and their wastes. The intertidal zone is the zone which is exposed during low tide and covered with water during high tide. Sublittoral zone are coastal regions with significant tidal flows and waves. The abyssal zone is found in 4,000 to 6,000 meters depth. Question number 113. Which of the following lotic systems is the largest? A. Rivers. B. Creeks. C. Streams. D. Brooks. The correct answer is A. Rivers. A river is a large body of fresh-flowing water. It forms from water moving from a higher elevation to a lower elevation, using the gravity. Most of the rivers eventually flows into lakes or seas. A creek is a natural flowing body of water, normally smaller than and often a tributary to a river. A stream is a body of water that flows on Earth's surface. It is also a tributary to a river. In some cases, the word stream is often used interchangeably with NBSP, river, though rivers usually describe larger streams. Question number 114. What do you call the type of habitat where heated and mineralized water carries a large amount of hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals that chemosynthetic bacteria can extract energy from? This is by contact with volcanic rock and wells up out of the ocean floor. The options are A. Coral reefs. B. Hydrothermal vents. C. Estuaries. And D. Upwelling zones. The correct answer is B. Hydrothermal vents. Underwater volcanoes at spreading ridges and convergent plate boundaries produce hot springs known as hydrothermal vents. Scientists first discovered hydrothermal vents in 1977, while exploring an oceanic spreading ridge near the Galapagos Islands. The scientists also found that the hydrothermal vents were surrounded by large numbers of NBSP organisms that had never been seen before. These biological communities depend upon chemical processes that result from the interaction of seawater and hot magma associated with underwater volcanoes. Question number 115. What do you call the term used to define the struggle of two or more organisms for limited resources, such as food, space, oxygen and light? A. Territoriality. B. Competition. C. Predation. D. Parasitism. The correct answer is B. Competition. Competition is an interaction between organisms or species, in which both the organisms or species are harmed. Competition is one of many interacting biotic and abiotic factors that affect community structure. Territoriality is the behavior by which an animal lays claim to and defends an area against others of its species and members of other species. Predation is the killing of the prey by the predator for the purpose of food. Meanwhile, parasitism is a consumer resource interaction, of which the parasite is small and the host is large. It results to positive effect to the parasite, and negative effect to the host. Question number 116. This is the process of converting ammonia to nitrates or nitrites, with the aid of microorganisms. What is this? Is it A. Ammonification, B. Nitrogen fixation, C. Nitrification, or D. Denitrification? The correct answer is C. Nitrification. Nitrification is the process of enzymatic oxidation of ammonia to nitrate, brought about by specific nitrifying microorganisms. Hence, the process is quite sensitive to any change in environmental conditions. Meanwhile, ammonification is the process where microscopic organisms, like bacteria or other types of decomposing organisms, break down nitrogen-containing chemicals from dead organic matter into simple substances like ammonia. On the other hand, nitrogen fixation is the process by which atmospheric nitrogen is converted by either a natural or an industrial means to a form of nitrogen such as ammonia. Lastly, denitrification is the process that converts nitrate to nitrogen gas, thus removing bioavailable nitrogen and returning it to the atmosphere. Question number 117. In an aquatic ecosystem, which is the main source of energy? A. Sun, B. Fish, C. Zooplankton, and D. Aquatic plants? The correct answer is A. Sun. The sun is the major source of energy for organisms, and the ecosystems of which they are a part. Producers such as plants, algae, and cyanobacteria use the energy from sunlight to make organic matter from carbon dioxide and water. This establishes the beginning of energy flow through almost all food webs. Question number 118. Autotrophs are the producers of an ecosystem. Which of the following is an autotroph? A. Green turtle, B. Lobster, C. Turtle grass, and D. Sea cow? The correct answer is C. Turtle grass. Autotrophs are organisms that can make their own food from only simple inorganic molecules such as carbon dioxide. There are two types of autotrophs. The photoautotrophs, which use light as source of energy, and the chemoautotrophs, which utilizes inorganic chemical reactions. The opposite of autotrophs are the heterotrophs. A heterotroph is an organism that eats and relies to other plants or animals for energy and nutrients. The term stems from the Greek words hetero for other and trophy for nourishment. Green turtle, lobster, and sea cow are examples of heterotrophs, or consumers. Question number 119. Which of the following statements about pure water is false? A. Water is the universal solvent. B. Ice sinks at the bottom. C. Boiling point is 100 degrees Celsius. And D. Maximum density is 4 degrees Celsius. The correct answer is B. Ice sinks at the bottom. All of the choices, except letter C, are true. Ice floats, because it is less denser than water. Water has a density of 1 gram per cubic centimeter, while the density of ice is 0.931 grams per cubic centimeter. And now, we are down to the last question in this episode. The type of relationship between sharks and remoras is termed as blank. The choices are A. Mutualism, B. Inquilinism, C. Parasitism, D. Commensalism. The correct answer is D. Commensalism. Commensalism is a type of relationship between two living organisms, in which one organism benefits from the other without harming it. A commensal species benefits from another species by obtaining locomotion, shelter, food, or support from the host species, which, for the most part, neither benefits nor is harmed. Meanwhile, mutualism is an interaction between individuals of different species that results in positive, beneficial effects on per capita reproduction and/or survival of the interacting populations. On the other hand, inquilinism is an association between members of two different species in which one, the inquiline, lives on or in the other, the host, or inside the host's home, obtaining shelter and in some instances taking some of the host's food. Lastly, parasitism is a type of relationship between two species of plants or animals, in which one benefits at the expense of the other, sometimes without killing the host organism. That's all for this episode. We hope that you learned from us. Until the next time, keep safe.